God, please, no! No! No!
Welcome back everybody to my channel T-Zeal. Today we will be talking about how I passed the California bar exam on my very first try. Not only that, I was part of the smallest section of people that ended up passing. With a record low of, I believe, 26% this February 2020, I was among the few people that actually passed. So, you might be asking, how did I do it? As some background, I graduated from law school in December 2019. So I think that's very important to note because I did not take time off to take the bar exam. So I'm not somebody that graduated in May or some other time and then had plenty of time to study or do whatever before the bar exam in February. I'm not somebody that, skipped over the July bar is essentially what I'm saying, and then took it in February of 2020. I graduated in December 2019, so this was pretty much like right off the bat, went into bar study and took the California February bar exam. So the number one thing that I would recommend is dedication. And I know this is something that is like icky and like not really something you could necessarily do in terms of, something easier like take notes or whatever. But it's very, very important. It's probably the most important thing that you can force yourself to become, and that's dedicated. So you have to understand that this is going to take a lot of time. If you are somebody that does work or needs to do other things, other obligations, then try your best to put it off. If you can't, then I would suggest studying ahead of time and starting earlier. So I did not have any other obligations, luckily, so I'm blessed for that. So what I ended up doing is I graduated on, I think it was like mid-December, and I had about 1 full week before bar study actually started. I think Barbary started around Christmas time, and so I had 1 full week, or about 1 full week to essentially relax before I started bar study. But I decided to take a whole different turn, and this is a turn that most people maybe would not be comfortable taking. You're basically graduating from law school 1 second, and this is the only time you really have to relax before bar study. But I decided to do something probably what most people would consider crazy, and I decided to do early start with my 1 free week. So while people were probably relaxing and stuff, I did not, and I have no regrets. Obviously, if I ended up failing, then maybe I would regret not relaxing when I could and having a clear mind before I got started with bar study. Take into account the fact that I graduated from law school in North Carolina, and I'm originally from California. So I literally graduated from law school on a Saturday morning. On Sunday, moved all of my remaining stuff out with my family who were kind enough to help. And on Monday afternoon, I was on my way back to California. And on Tuesday is when I started early start. So it was pretty much jam-packed, and I did everything I could. I even wanted to move my flight up to Saturday night, the day of graduation, pretty much leave that night and, study starting Sunday morning. But I decided maybe I should not be a lunatic for once, and I waited until Tuesday morning to start. So that just goes to show you that it does take dedication. You will need to essentially focus extremely hard. I wouldn't say that you have to have the attention span of some crazy superhero. You don't need to be able to stare at a book for 10 hours straight and have this crazy attention span and just understand everything. I think that people push this idea that you need this amazing attention span. I think our school or counselors were saying that I believe each section of the bar exam is not 5 hours. I believe the MBE section is 3 hours per 100 questions, so 3-hour sections. And the essay was something around that from what I recall. It's kind of a repressed memory. so I'm not really, focused on the time periods they were, but essentially we were suggested to have the attention span of being able to go 4 hours. So when the bar exam would come, our attention span would be there the entire time. And I don't think that's necessarily true. Obviously, you do want to have a strong attention span. You don't want to like look at your phone every 5 minutes when you're looking at lectures or like trying to study and you keep taking breaks every like 3 minutes. You don't want an attention span that small. You do want to push the limits. But obviously, when the bar exam actually does come, you will have the focus you need. I don't think your biggest moment of your life is going to be you literally like staring at the ceiling or like playing with your pencil and stuff like that. You will have the adrenaline rush of being focused and being in that like zone in that moment. I do notice some people do look around, and I guess that just goes to show you that I might have been looking around a little bit, but I was not just like looking around just like stupidly. I was like thinking while like kind of scoping the area, while like thinking about different ideas, what I should say before I write it. I don't really outline much, so I kind of like to process everything in my mind and then just put it there and like work from there instead of outlining. But in any case, dedication is very important. So you will need to have the energy to go this span of time, about 2.5 months. I think Barbry's program was about 6 to 7 weeks, and then you had about like 2 weeks at the end to just do not essentially what you wanted to do. Barbry did have stuff, but I kind of went on my own route at that point and studied everything that I could and crammed. Which is pretty much what's recommended, I think, generally, but obviously you do have resources with your bar study program. I'm assuming like Barbry for those last week. Number 2, I think something very important to understand is that you literally will not understand everything right away. I think we get this idea where if you don't understand everything like right away, then you start getting frustrated, you start getting scared, you start getting nervous, and that kind of messes with your mind even more, and I think that ruins your focus. So I think it's very important to understand that you do not need to know everything right off the bat. That doesn't mean that just because you didn't understand everything right off the bat, or maybe you didn't like memorize everything right off the bat, that you will fail the exam. That doesn't mean that. You have to understand that it is a process. It doesn't mean you'll grasp everything right away. But I think it's very important, if you don't understand everything, then if you don't understand everything between the time you start a subject to the end of the subject, then maybe you should start asking yourself questions about like what you don't understand and start Googling around or like look at other resources to figure out what you don't understand. What I like to do is I understand myself well enough to realize that I don't grasp everything right away. I was like that in law school as well. So I might get bits and pieces of stuff, but I won't really like have everything like figured out like entire puzzle. I'll get one piece here, I'll get one piece there, and like the pieces themselves will generally make sense. Maybe sometimes it won't make complete sense, but I will be able to gather all the pieces. And when it comes time to actually study, then everything kind of starts flowing together, and I'm putting like all the pieces I had together. I'm memorizing the pieces, and I'm basically putting this puzzle together, and the questions arise that way. And those are like more genuine questions than I would have when I'm watching a lecture and I'm like, oh, that like doesn't make complete sense, and this doesn't make sense. Kind of like having all the pieces together and putting it all together kind of answers a lot of questions along the way, is my point. And then genuine questions come out of that, where it's like, oh, you put all these pieces together, but maybe there's a little tweak over here where it's like not making complete sense, and you need to like do outside research to figure out what kind of went wrong in your thought process, and to help you understand the entire concept or the entire body of law or whatever. So it's very important to stay calm. Everything will kind of work itself out. I think a lot of it goes to who you actually are and kind of like your understanding of yourself at this point. A lot of you, or pretty much everybody, is definitely at least, you know, in their like 20s, so you understand yourself, how you learn and stuff. And that was kind of my way. Obviously, if you know that you grasp everything like right away, very quickly, and for some reason things aren't making sense like right away anymore, then you should question what's going wrong and try to figure it out before it's too late. I'm somebody that doesn't really grasp everything right away and kind of puts everything together at the end, and then figures out like, you know, why doesn't this make sense? Why doesn't this piece over here make sense? And then I figure things out. So I don't really question myself ahead of time before I gather all the pieces and try to like put it together myself. And you might have a different learning method, so you know, I think you should trust the way you learn yourself, and you know, go from there. But I don't think anybody should be panicking 1 week in, 2 weeks in, like, oh, nothing's making sense. Or, well, if nothing makes sense, then obviously you should be concerned, but it shouldn't be the perfect picture is my point. It shouldn't be like fully clear. And if it is, then that's amazing for you. Obviously, you won't necessarily have any problems. Remember not to get overconfident about it though. Number 3. So this one is a bit complicated. I'm not really sure exactly what to say. I'm not sure if I would recommend it myself, but it worked out for me. I think I know myself. I know that I can push my limits a lot of times, but I really focused on bar study. Maybe I focused so much that I took it further than most people would recommend. Obviously, like I said, I averaged about 65 hours a week. Sometimes it was 60. I think the lowest I went was about like 59 hours and some minutes. The highest I went was probably around 74 hours in a week. So know your limits. Don't go so far that you will burn out. So that's very important. But in my case, on how I passed the bar exam, and I'll take this with a grain of salt depending on who you actually are and the way you you know, who you actually are and your limits. But I did not do anything crazy in terms of, you know, having fun and stuff like that. I think that's very important to take in general, is not to have fun, you know, which is like kind of crazy, but you shouldn't be, you know, like going to parties and, you know, like getting drunk and, you know, whatever you want to do for fun or whatever, spend a whole weekend just blowing off studying and stuff like that. You should not go that far no matter who you are. I think I took it to like a whole new level, which is what I would take with a grain of salt depending on what your limits are. But I kind of narrowed down my getaway from bar study. Generally speaking, maybe usually in 1 week I'll take probably only a half day off just to spend time with my family. Outside of that, I did not really deviate much. Usually I studied until like 8-ish, depending on when I started. And, you know, after that, I'll kind of like somewhat relax. Maybe, you know, watch a couple episodes or something on Netflix or whatever you want to do for entertainment. During the day, it was pretty much all focus. You know, the breaks I only took were for like, I think I just took like a lunch break, which was usually like 20 to 30 minutes. Some people, maybe you want to take a longer lunch break. That's not what I did. That's what I'm saying. Take it with a grain of salt. What else did I take? Obviously, I took a break to shower. Usually I either ate breakfast very quickly or, you know, my schedule kind of deviated. Like sometimes I had like breakfast real quick and then got into bar study. Sometimes I would start bar study and a couple hours into it, I would have breakfast. On days where I started very early. Other times I just got some coffee or whatever, and I'll just be drinking coffee while I watch lectures or maybe ate. I think lectures are a perfect place to do like somewhat other things. I wouldn't really start watching TV while trying to watch lectures or anything like that, but lectures are generally something that you could watch while doing other things, as long as you are paying attention. I took notes during all my lectures, so I was paying attention.
6 hours later.
I know this video is getting very long, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually break it into 2 parts. Currently, this video is almost 30 minutes long, so I'm gonna break it into different parts. I wish I could have fit everything into one, but I think that would cut out too many good stuff and juicy details and stuff like that, and I don't want it to be that dry where it's just like, oh, take notes, oh, do this, oh, do that, and stuff like that. So I do want to make it more filled, if you will, especially with my own experiences. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break it into 2 parts, and the cut is gonna be pretty much right here, and the next episode will probably be uploaded shortly, and it will be the second part of how I passed the California bar exam. Thank you all for watching. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. The second part will be uploaded sooner than later. Thank you all.